Good morning. Good morning. You guys are awfully quiet this morning. Do you have something to do with the fire alarm? Good morning. My name is Donna Williams, and I am the chair of the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. It is 10:42, April 26, 2023, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast live via the internet. Before we begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome those joining us via internet conference and ask that you observe the following etiquette. First, please state your name before you speak. Second, mute your phone when you're not speaking. And 3, keep background noise to a minimum. Members, when I call your name, please announce present. Donna Williams, here. Sam Torn, Vice Chair.
Here.
Richard Clemmer.
No, ma'am, he had folks wrong.
Will marking is absent. Fred Frias.
Here.
Emma Swartz.
Here.
Daniel Long.
Here.
Emma Hayden. As a student representative. Please record in the minutes that we have a quorum. Agenda item 2 is consideration and possible action to adopt the minutes for the January 25th, 2023 committee meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the January 25th, 2023 meetings of the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success?
So moved.
I have a motion made by Sam Torn. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Daniel Long. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Passes to the full board. Agenda item number 3 is public testimony on agenda items relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. We do not have anyone registered to testify, so I'll go to the next item. Agenda item 4 is consideration and possible action to adopt the consent calendar. The consent calendar includes non-controversial items that we think can be approved without comment or discussion. This allows us to save time for other items that need more of our attention. Highlighted items in gray are consent items on the agenda. We are going to take up the consent calendar in 2 parts. Approval of non-rule consent items and then the rule consent agenda items. Of course, any board member can request that an agenda item be added or removed from the consent calendar. All agenda items listed on the non-rule consent for this meeting are agenda item 5A, consideration and possible action to adopt the report to the board on school closures and or teach outs pursuant to board rule 7.76. Agenda item 5E is consideration and possible action to adopt the report on fiscal year 2023 annual review of low producing programs. Agenda item 5F is consideration and possible action to appoint members to the Applied Texas Advisory Committee. Members, are there any agenda items that you would like to add to the non-rule consent calendar? Are there any agenda items that anyone would like to remove from the non-consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the non-rule consent calendar?
So moved.
I have a motion made by Ms. Swartz. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Members, the next item on the consent calendar are the rule items. The rules placed on the consent calendar are those that are either technical, conforming, or implement non-controversial policies around which there is a consensus. Agenda item 5L1, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules 1.188 and 1.190 concerning the Learning Technology Advisory Committee. Agenda item 5L2, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules 2.3 and 2.9 concerning revisions and modifications to an approved program. Are there any rules that anyone would like to remove from the rules consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the rule consent calendar?
So moved.
A motion made by Mr. Torn. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 5A was approved on consent. Agenda item 5B is consideration and possible action to adopt the Certification Advisory Council and the Commissioner's recommendation related to a request from Medicine College of Biomedical Engineering Technology for its fourth and final certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas. Dr. Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Education, will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Education. Medicine College of Biomedical Engineering Technology in Dallas, Texas, seeks approval for its fourth certificate of authority to award an Associates of Applied Science degree in Biomedical Engineering Technology. Certificates of authority are granted for 2-year periods. Institutions may be granted successive certificate of authorities for a total of 8 years. After 8 years, absent sufficient cause, the institution must have obtained accreditation from an accrediting agency recognized by the coordinating board. Medicine has applied for its fourth certificate of authority as the institution works towards accreditation by the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training, an accrediting agency recognized by the coordinating board. This certificate of authority would be valid from April 2023 to April 2025. Currently, Medicine's application for accreditation has been accepted, and a site visit will take place in the summer of 2023 by the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training. An on-site evaluation was conducted at Medicine College December 5th through the 7th. The site evaluation team consisted of 4 subject matter experts, which included our colleague from the coordinating board, Dr. Paul Schuler. The site evaluation team reported that at the time of the site visit, Medicine College was in compliance with all of the coordinating board's required standards. Since receiving their certificate of authority in 2017, Medicine has awarded 61 associate degrees so far and is expected to award an additional 25 to 30 more in the next 12 months. The commissioner and the coordinating board's 6-member Certification Advisory Council independently reviewed the evaluation team's reports, and the commissioner and the council recommend approval for Medicine's application for its fourth certificate of authority. And this concludes my report.
Thank you.
Question. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I was gonna call a question.
Thank you. Before we call the question, I have a question for Dr. Jackson. How often, I know this council gets approved by the board. How often, remind me again, does that council rotate?
Do they meet?
No. The members,
Every 2 years.
every 2 years, we move people to be on that. So is that enough time for transition? I'm curious for people, historical knowledge to be on that committee. I mean, that's important certification. So I was just curious, is it every 2 years, is it staggered terms or do we know?
There are staggered terms, so they're not all coming on and off at the same time. Yeah, so we have folks who would have that institutional knowledge.
And do we have any history of the certification or accreditation having issues? Is 8 years is a long time, obviously. That's how long it takes for some of these institutions.
It does, and I don't think there have been any issues that I'm aware of. I can check and share more, but none that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the certification advisory council and the commissioner's recommendation relating to a request from Medicine College of Biomedical Engineering Technology for its fourth and final certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas? May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Mr. Wong and seconded by Mr. Torn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5C is consideration and possible action to adopt the certification advisory council and the commission's recommendation related to a request from Texas School of Health Science for its first certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas. Dr. Tina Jackson will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Hello again. Texas School of Health Sciences in West Lacombe, Texas seeks approval for its first certificate of authority to award an Associates of Applied Science degree in nursing. Certificates of authority are granted for 2-year periods. Institutions may be granted successive certificates of authority for a total of 8 years. After 8 years, absent sufficient cause, the institution must have obtained accreditation from an accrediting agency recognized by the coordinating board. The certificate of authority would be Texas School of Health of Sciences' first certificate of authority, valid from April 2023 through April 2025. An on-site evaluation was conducted at the Texas School of Health Sciences on November 7th through the 9th of 2022. The site evaluation team consisted of 4 subject matter experts and also our colleague, Dr. Paul Schuler from the coordinating board. The site evaluation team report indicated that at the time of the site visit, Texas School of Health Sciences was in compliance with 17 of the coordinating board's required standards. Texas School of Health Sciences response to the site visit report addressed the 7 standards not met. The coordinating board Certificate Advisory Council reviewed the evaluation team's report, and Texas School of Health Sciences response to the evaluation report at its February 2nd, 2023 meeting. The CAC members voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the application for its first certificate of authority with 2 conditions of providing additional information. The institution has replied to the CAC's conditions with additional information. The commissioner and the coordinating board certificate of advisory council independently reviewed the evaluation team's report. The commissioner and the council recommend approval of Texas School of Health Sciences application for its first certificate of authority. And this concludes my report.
Any questions? Dr. Jackson? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the certification advisory council and the commissioner's recommendation related to a request from Texas School of Health Science for its first certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas? May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Mr. Torrance, second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5D is consideration and possible action to approve the request to extend the current contract with the University of Texas at Austin for maintenance for the Applied Texas System. Ms. Molly Gully, Senior Director for Advising Strategy, will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Good morning, it's a pleasure to see you all again. We are requesting approval to extend the current contract with the University of Texas at Austin for maintenance of the Applied Texas System. So while parallel work is underway to release and improve the Applied Texas, UT Austin will need to continue support and maintenance of the current Applied Texas system to ensure continuity as we transition to the new system. The cost for an additional 1-year extension is up to $1,150,000, bringing the total 6-year cost of the contract to just under $5.5 million. The cost of the contract is of 0 cost to the agency, as the General Appropriations Act provides the coordinating board the authority to collect funds from the participating institutions. This concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions for this lady? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request to rescind the current contract with the University of Texas at Austin for maintenance of the Applied Texas System for a period of 1 year? So moved. I have a motion made by Ms. Swartz. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Long. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 5E and 5F were approved on consent. Agenda item 5G is consideration and possible action to approve receipt of fiscal year 2023 Carl D. Perkins Community and Technical Colleges Consolidated Grant of $41.57 million, which includes a mid-year reallocation of $8.28 million. Dr. Tina Jackson will present this item and be available to answer. Jackson.
Hello again. The coordinating board staff requests that the board approve receipt of fiscal year 23 Carl D. Perkins Community and Technical Colleges Consolidated Grant in the amount of $41.57 million, which includes the mid-year allocation of $8.28 million to support post-secondary career and technical education programs and assist eligible students in technical programs. The Texas Education Agency is the state's designated eligible entity to receive the state's annual federal allocation of Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education funds under the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 2021 Act of 2019. The State Board of Education allocates 30% of the funds to the coordinating board. Fiscal year 23 consolidated funds to the coordinating board of $33.29 million is supplemented by a mid-year allocation from the previous year's unexpended funds. And the awards of consolidated funds include the Formula Award administrative funds to support the coordinating board's administrative post-secondary Perkins funds, a small fund to support students entering into designated non-traditional male and female fields. The mid-year allocation adds to the basic award to further supplement colleges and support career technical education programs and eligible students. Allocations to schools and colleges is a statutory requirement of the Act. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Jackson? Do I have a motion to approve receipt of fiscal year 2023 Carl D. Perkins Community and Technical Colleges Consolidated Grant of $41.57 million, which includes a mid-year reallocation of $8.28 million? May I have a motion? I have a motion by Ms. Frias. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5H is consideration and possible action to approve receipt of fiscal year 2024 Carl D. Perkins Community and Technical Colleges Consolidated Grant Funds not to exceed $40 million and receipt of fiscal year 2024 Carl D. Perkins State Leadership Grant Funds not to exceed $5 million. Dr. Jackson will present this item.
Yes, thank you. The U.S. Department of Education allocates Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education funds to the states annually under the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act of 2019. The Texas Education Agency is a designee to receive these entities annually for federal allocations of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education funds under this act. 30% of the funds go to the coordinating board. Actual funding depends upon final congressional approval of the federal budget and may differ from estimates. Coordinating board staff requests the approval of receipt of fiscal year 2024 of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education funds up to but not to exceed $40 million, and the leadership grant in the amount of, but up to, but not to exceed 5 million. 85% of the allocated funds will be distributed to public two-year colleges and required under the Perkins 5. 10% will support state leadership activities, a small fund for activities supporting students' entry into fields that are not traditional for their sex, such as males entering into nursing, and will be also provided. 5% of these funds are set aside for the administration of the Perkins Fund. And this concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Jackson? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve receipt of fiscal year 2024 Carl D. Perkins Community and Technical Colleges Consolidated Grant Funds not to exceed 40 million and receipt of fiscal year 2024 Carl D. Perkins State Leadership Grant Funds not to exceed 5 million? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Schwartz. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Torn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5I is consideration and action to adopt the report to the legislature regarding reporting of sexual harassment at institutions of higher ed per Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E2 and E3, E-2 and E-3. Dr. Jackson will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Hello again. This agenda item provides the required annual report to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House and of Representatives, and the standing legislative committees with primary jurisdiction over legislating concerning sexual assault at post-secondary educational institution. This report includes information regarding institutions' compliance with Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E2 and E3. Subchapters E2 require an employee of a post-secondary institution to report incidents involving sexual harassment, sexual assault, date violence, and stalking alleged to have happened or been committed against a person who was a student enrolled or an employee of an institution at the time of the instance. Reports are made to the institution's Title IX coordinator. Subchapter E2 further requires of the chief executive officer of the institution to annually certify to the coordinating board that the institution is in substantial compliance with these reporting requirements. Subchapter E3 requires institutions to develop policies and procedures regarding sexual misconduct, reporting required resources and handling of investigations. The report on compliance includes the summary results of compliance monitoring for academic year 2021 to 2022. Presented by Mark Pale, Assistant Commissioner of Internal Audit and Compliance, 217 post-secondary institutions were identified and required to provide CEO certifications. 10 institutions did not file timely certifications, but have since complied. With regards to the institutions selected for a detailed review and assessment of policies and procedures under subchapter E3, Internal Audit and Compliance works with 2 institutions to ensure follow-up actions were taken. Dallas College implemented policy recommendations from the prior review dated May 2021, and Southwestern Christian College implemented policy recommendations from the prior report dated May 2021. Based on 3 years of compliance monitoring, the coordinating staff convened a negotiating rulemaking committee to develop an administrative penalty matrix as part of the administrative rule found in the coordinating board's rule 3.19. The rule revision will be considered by the coordinating board at this April board meeting. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Jackson? And I also had Mark on my agenda, but since you didn't come up, I didn't read your title.
And he is here and available for questions also.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the report to the legislature regarding reporting of sexual harassment at institutions of higher education per Texas Education Code, chapter 51, subchapters E-2 and E-3. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Daniel Wong. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Amy Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5J are the requests for new degree programs. Agenda item 5J1 is consideration and possible action to approve the request from the University of Houston for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, with a major in computer engineering. Members, representatives from the University of Houston will be available to answer questions at tomorrow's quarterly board meeting, removing the requirement for them to attend both the committee and the board meetings will reduce travel time and costs for the institution. Ms. Elizabeth Mayer, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Good morning, good to see you all. The University of Houston is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Engineering. The proposed program would be primarily face-to-face in Houston. The proposed PhD would require 72 semester credit hours for students entering with a bachelor's degree and 54 semester credit hours for students entering with a master's degree. The categories of computer hardware engineer and computer software engineer were used to evaluate the job outlook for the computer engineering profession. In May 2021, the Bureau of Labor Statistics ranked Texas as the state with the 4th highest employment rate of computer engineers. The Texas Workforce Commission anticipates the state demand for computer hardware engineers to grow 14% from 2020 to 2030, while the demand for computer software engineers is projected to grow 36%. The proposed program is a fast-growing discipline that encompasses all area of computer systems research, development, design, and operation, including both hardware and software components. The curriculum is designed to provide students with an opportunity to obtain rigorous training comparable to other high-quality programs by providing core courses in the computer engineering curriculum and rigorous research experiences. UH does not anticipate any new hires in the first 5 years of the proposed program. The related supporting Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering at UH is currently accredited by AVEN. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request for the University of Houston for a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD, with a major in computer engineering? May I have a motion? Motion made by Ms. Torn. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I just want to specify again that this is a recommendation from this committee to the board to make the full approval at the review.
Yes. And the institution representative will be here tomorrow as well. If you have
That's right,
additional
for questions.
questions. Agenda item 5J2 is consideration and possible action to approve the request from the University of Texas at San Antonio for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, with a major in chemical engineering. Members, the representatives from the University of Texas at San Antonio will be available to answer questions tomorrow at our quarterly board meeting. Ms. Mayor will present this item.
The University of Texas at San Antonio is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Philosophy in Chemical Engineering. The proposed program would be face-to-face in San Antonio. Students would be allowed to enter the program upon completion of a bachelor's degree. These students would be required to take 72 semester credit hours to graduate. The UTSA Graduate School would allow 30 credit hours to be transferred from an accredited master's program. Based upon these requirements, students entering with a master's degree would be required to complete a minimum of 42 semester credit hours. The Texas Workforce Commission indicates chemical engineering positions will experience a 25.22% increase for the decade 2020 to 2030, creating around 504 jobs each year due to growth and replacement. The proposed program would allow graduates of this research-intensive program to develop skills in chemical engineering and other disciplines that would enable them to apply innovative engineering research to solve problems across the traditional scientific boundaries and lead careers in industry, academia, or governmental research laboratories. The curriculum proposed is multi-interdisciplinary, with courses identified across science and engineering to support the programs. The structure enables a flexible curriculum that is consistent with current best practices in the field. In accordance with the institution's proposed hiring schedule, UTSA would hire 2 additional core faculty members. One additional core faculty member would be hired in the first year and 1 in the second year of the program. That concludes my remarks.
Members, any questions for Ms. Graham? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of Texas at San Antonio for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, with a major in chemical engineering? May I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Schwartz. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Long. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. On the agenda item, we're at 5K and it's at lunch, but we're moving so fast. We can just keep breezing. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Agenda item 5L are proposed rules. Agenda item 5L1 and 5L2 were approved on consent. Agenda item 5L3 is consideration and possible action to adopt new board rules 2.200 through 2.207 concerning approval of distance education for public institutions. Dr. Michelle Singh, Assistant Commissioner for Digital Learning, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Good morning, Dr. Singh.
Good morning, Chair Williams, Vice Chair Torn, and members of the committee. Glad to be here with you today. I am Michelle Singh, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Assistant Commissioner for Digital Learning. Texas Education Code Section 61.0512G provides the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board with the authority to approve distance learning courses at institutions of higher education. The Learning Technology Advisory Committee, LTAC, is a standing committee charged with engaging in substantive policy research regarding the role that learning technology plays in Texas higher education and providing advice and recommendations to the board. Over the past year, LTAC convened a work group to review distance education related rules with the goal of aligning with current practice. LTAC recommends the adoption of new rules in Texas Administrative Code Chapter 2, Subchapter J, Sections 2.200 to 2.207, which apply to the approval of distance education for public institutions. Adoption of this new section will amend definitions of distance education courses, distance education programs, and revise the approval process for public institutions seeking to offer distance education in order to provide Texas residents with access to courses and programs that meet their needs and to promote course and program quality. The proposed new rules define 2 categories of distance education courses: 100% online courses and hybrid courses. A 100% online course is one in which 100% of instructional activity takes place when the student and instructor are in separate physical locations. Non-instructional activities such as requirements for on-campus or in-person orientation, testing, or field work do not exclude a course from this category. A hybrid course is one in which more than 50% but less than 100% of instructional activity take place when the student and instructor are in separate physical locations. In alignment with the proposed course definitions, the new rules define 2 categories of distance education programs: 100% online program and hybrid program. A 100% online program is a degree program in which students complete 100% of the credit hours required for that program through 100% online courses. Requirements for on-campus or in-person orientation, testing, or field work or other non-instructional activities do not exclude a program from this category. A hybrid program is a degree program in which students complete 50% or more and less than 100% of the credit hours required for the program through distance education courses. Finally, the proposed new rules modify the approval process for institutions seeking to offer distance education. Institutions would continue to be responsible for submission of an institutional plan for distance education, an IPDE, to the THECB prior to delivering any distance education programs for the first time. Most institutions currently have an approved IPDE on record. The proposed new rules detail requirements for institutions to assess distance education and submit an updated IPDE on an ongoing basis, on a schedule corresponding to renewal of accreditation or no less than every 10 years as applicable. After IPDE approval, institutions may offer an existing certificate or degree via distance modality by simply notifying the coordinating board of the change instead of needing to go through a formal LTAC approval process. New certificates or degrees will continue to follow the regular program process for approval. The new rules concerning distance education were published in the Texas Register on January 27th. No comments were received regarding the new rules. The staff recommendation is for approval, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Dr. Singh, I have a question in general. Obviously after the pandemic and all, distance education has become, I think, more common, right? So you said no comments through the register. And what is kind of some of the feedback that you've heard or the institutions, the LTAC committee, what are some of the possible concerns they may have, or have they had any at all?
And so right now what we experience and what we're trying to recover from is this quick shift to online education, which was known as remote education. Remote education was such a quick pivot that we didn't necessarily have the opportunity at institutions to go through everything that is required to really build a strong foundation for quality online. And so part of the difference in definitions is clarity for our students, because we heard back from so many, there was a confusion with the prior definition of 85% to 100, where a student didn't fully understand why 15% of their course instruction could still be required for a fully online course. These new definitions bring clarity to that in response to the feedback that we heard from instructors and students. In addition, the approval process changed, where we're going to continue to look at IPDEs and distance education offerings, is important so that we can keep in tune with the industry demands and how distance education changes. Once again, a lot of our institutions that had historical approval for online education and have been practicing for a long time saw a smoother transition into the remote education process than those that maybe had not had as much exposure. So what we're hoping to do is really come collectively together and learn from the experiences of our institutions that have been excellent in this area, recognized nationally and internationally for their work, and elevate the level of excellence for all of our institutions, being able to identify those best practices that the institutions have put in place and assist others by building resources together to make sure that maybe some of our institutions that do not have the resources or the capability of doing quality education in the onset with a smaller team can really leverage that expertise from our institutions across the state.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there any program the coordinating board will not approve for 100% online degree? Is there any program that you come in your mind that we will not approve for that? Or we just up to the institution provide the information and we look at that and say, okay, that's okay. Because I would say there's some degree that require internship and laboratory and all the other face-to-face instruction that I don't know how we're going to deal with that when the institution come in and say, like, I want to have 100% online degree on those programs.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to look at different programs. We've been surprised at the amount of innovation that has come forth in the last couple of years with simulations, with AI, with so many different technologies that are emerging on a regular basis, that some of the items in academics and certificate programs that we've seen that we would have initially thought that may be difficult to transition to an online environment has really proved us incorrect. And so I think with every program we take is one step at a time to really identify and talk to our institutions about what does the infrastructure look like to support that quality experience. The beauty is that LTAC is full of professionals that have, I think, cumulatively over 300 years of experience in distance education. Yes, we count it because we are that data group that really enjoys doing that, but over 300 years of experience in distance education, and can really talk to our institutions about what are those opportunities that we have to push that boundary and make sure that we can collectively grow as a state. And so we do have a subcommittee that talks one-to-one with institutions about their IPDE and what we can do and what we've learned from over the course of the years to help bring every program into an online format, if possible.
So do we have any data actually to compare during the pandemic? So many classes become online compared to, in terms of the quality of graduate compared to pre-pandemic period, to see if you can collect it's very hard to do it, I understand, but is there any way to kind of gauge it so that we'll have some data to defend ourselves, like, oh, wow, certain program actually online, some of the professors really like online, but actually the outcome may not be as favorable as what we anticipate, then we'll have some number, some data that we can at least look into the future to help the institution to improve on. I'm sure online is the trend to go, but we should have something that we can at least look into that so that we can have something to defend on ourselves.
Absolutely agree. There are several national studies that have already been done for different types of programs that we saw thrive during the pandemic and during the shift. And we're looking to take that information, those different models, and apply them to the state level, because we're very curious from the certificate level all the way to doctoral degrees. What were those programs that really became prominent and really became an opportunity for us to explore an environment that we hadn't otherwise considered? And so we're actively studying that as we speak and look forward to coming back and sharing that with you in the coming year.
Yeah, I'm happy that way. The dental school in the future will be online. Metaverse. Just joking.
Any additional comments or questions?
I'd like to make one comment. It's just to acknowledge that Michelle and her team were recently honored by the House and Senate and the legislature with a resolution acknowledging their work across multiple fronts. So wanted to be sure that the board was aware of that recognition and appreciation from the legislature.
Congratulations. Now, do I have a motion to adopt board rules 2.200 through 2.207 regarding approval of distance education for public institutions? May I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Wong and seconded by Ms. Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5L4 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules 3.19 to implement the penalty matrix for failure to meet substantial compliance under Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E1, E-2 through E-3. Mr. Jarrell Booker, Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs, will present this item and be available to answer questions. And Mr. Mark Pale is also available for questions if you have questions for him as well. Okay.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jarrell Booker, for the record, Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Academic Affairs. Good morning. I'm presenting on agenda item 5L4. I'm requesting adoption of proposed board amendment rule 3.19 to implement a penalty matrix for failure to meet substantial compliance under the Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E2 and E3, as it relates to sexual misconduct reporting. As many of you may recall, Senate Bill 212 and House Bill 1735 was passed and signed into law during an 86 legislative session, requiring all employees, both faculty and staff at 2-year and 4-year public and private institutions, to promptly report any knowledge or incidents of sexual misconduct, sexual assault, sexual harassment, dating violence, stalking committed by or against an enrolled student or an employee at their institution at the time of the incident. Since that became law, we have now come back to provide more clarity and guidance for institutions as well as our own agency as far as that reporting. We convened 13 individuals from different institutions, public, private, 2-year, 4-year, and health-related institutions through our negotiated rulemaking process that you all are very familiar with, that to develop these proposed rules. And in this amendment that we've come up with is we added a matrix to determine the amount of the administrative penalty with certain mitigating and aggravating factors that may also be considered. We set the due date for compliance certification. We set and scheduled a risk-based compliance monitoring, which is why Mark is on there as a potential witness, and provides for appeals for any of the assessed penalties that may be levied. The amended rules were published in the Texas Registry in early February. We've gone through our 30-day comment period and we received no comments. Generally, because when you go through negotiated rulemaking, we've really been very thoughtful in working with institutions to develop these amended rules. Because of that, I'm asking for a favorable adoption here at this committee, and obviously, like Dr. Fraser said, it will be up to the full board for full passage, but I'm requesting adoption of this amended rules.
Any questions? No, actually, I do have a question. Does the rules include English? Let me see, how do I say this? Virtual bullying or virtual harassment or whatever? Does it have to happen on the campus or have to happen in person? Can it be something that someone does virtually to someone and that's considered harassment as well?
So these rules are dealing with the reporting of it, but the other section of the law is actually looking at how what's harassment. I believe it does any sort of sexual harassment incident that's included. Be included in that. Not really bullying, but anything on the sexual.
Other questions? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the proposed amendments to Board Rule 3.19 to implement the penalty matrix for failure to meet substantial compliance under Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, subchapters E-2 and E-3. May I have a motion? I'll move. I have a motion by Ms. Schwartz. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5L5 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules 4.279B concerning formula funding for out-of-state and out-of-country programs. Dr. Tina Jackson will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Coordinating Board Rule, Chapter 4, Subchapter Q governs approval of all off-campus and self-supporting courses and programs for public institutions. Rule 4-279B of the subchapter provides that a Texas public institution may submit for formula funding those courses taught as part of an out-of-state instructional program. The proposed amendment of Rule 4.279B would allow an exception in the case that a regional airport exists in the same metropolitan area as the college, but no more than 5 miles across the state line. This narrow exception would allow a college in the same metropolitan area as the airport to operate a technical instructional program in an aviation mechanics or a similar program and receive formula funding for the offered. The rationale for this rule is that the airport is in the same metropolitan area and employs Texas residents, services to Texas travelers, provides increased commerce to Texas, and educates students living in the metropolitan area. We are aware of only one institution, Texarkana College, that may fall under this provision of the rule. And I would be happy to answer any questions, and this concludes my report.
So Dr. Jackson had a question. Here it said, Chair Williams said, you didn't mention out of the country. Can you give us examples of public university? I know a couple, but where that would be an issue, the funding?
I'm going to ask my colleague, Emily Comier, to come up.
It's
We've
kind of a
been,
detailed question,
Yeah.
sorry, but
we've been working
I
together
know
on
that
this
there's
one.
some public systems that are expanding programs, and this is an area of question for some folks, but Emily?
I apologize. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. So the proposals, I understand totally the out of state, but it says also for out of country programs. There's public institutions that have expanded programs into other parts of the world, and students that are from those countries. And so my question is, how is the funding tied into that?
Those students do not currently receive formula funding for the state if it's operated solely out of the country.
Okay, so that was what I thought. So why do we have that for out of the country in this consideration, this adoption? So So it says consideration of possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rule 4.279 concerning formula funding for out-of-state or out-of-country programs.
Chairman, that's just currently how the rule is drafted. So the text of the rule includes the out of state or out of country, although in actual matter, anything out of the country would per se be out of the state. And so I think it's just a redundancy or clarification in the text that exists there. So it's not actually relevant to this rule. It's just pulling over what's already in the text.
Okay, thank you. That's why, because I knew it wasn't formula funding, but the way this is stated, it's kind of.
It is confusing because anything out of the country is out of state, right?
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
I think I asked the same question when we were going through the reading and the genesis of this is something in Arkansas, I believe, and I said, I didn't know Arkansas was another country. Sam said. Any additional questions or comments? Do I have a motion to adopt proposed amendment to Board Rule 4.279B concerning formula funding for out-of-state or out-of-country programs? May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Wong. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 5L6 is consideration and possible action to adopt board rules 13.400 through 13.408 concerning the True Grant Program. Dr. Tina Jackson will present this item as well.
Hello again, Madam Chair and committee members, board members. These new rules to the Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 13, Subchapter N, Subchapter 13.400-13.408 concern establishing the operations of the Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Through Education Grant Program. Specifically, these new rules detail eligibility requirements, application procedures, awards, review criteria, and the reporting criteria regarding the grant program. The new rules established for the True program is to strengthen the Texas workforce and to build strong Texas economy. The True program provides grants to eligible entities to create and redesign or expand workforce training programs and delivering education and workforce training. There are no provisions for the process of data collection and reporting undertaken by the True grantees and the coordinating board, which will gauge the impact of the True grant program on student success. The adoption of the new rules implements Senate Bill 1102, which happened in the 87th legislature, requirements for the operation of the True grant program. And this concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Jackson? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt new board rules 13.400 through 13.408 concerning the True Grant Program? May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Coleman,
Second.
second by Mr. Frias. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 5L7 is consideration and possible action to adopt new board rules 13.450 through 13.454 concerning formula funding for distance education. Dr. Singh will present this item and be available to answer questions. Singh.
Hello again. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is working on moving all rules regarding formula funding into Chapter 13 of the Texas Administrative Code. This change will improve the agency's rule readability and help institutions navigate Title 19, Part 1 of the TAC. Proposed new rules 13.450 to 13.454 will move existing rules regarding distance education formula funding from Chapter 4, Subchapter P to Chapter 13, Subchapter O. The rules are reorganized and recodified without substantive revisions, modifying any existing funding policy. The new rules concerning distance education formula funding were published in the Texas Register on January 27th No comments were received regarding the new rules. THUCB staff proposes one change to the proposed version published in the Texas Register, striking a duplicative provision in 13.4537 as it contains wording already included in 13.4536. Staff recommendation is for approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Singh? Do I have a motion to adopt new board rules 13.450 through 13.454 concerning formula funding for distance education? May I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Chris. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 6 is adjournment. There is no further discussion. If there's no further discussion, may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Torrance, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Schwartz. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. We will now take a short break to allow staff to set up for the